let's start with the most recent film, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. I guess, okay, this is a sequel to Doctor Strange, where Doctor Strange has now been pulled into a multiverse because he's trying to protect a young girl whose powers that someone... Wait, this is a spoiler-heavy review because there's no way to talk about
spoilers.
Okay, basically, Scarlet Witch wants this girl's powers so she can find the dimension and be with her children. And Doctor Strange is trying to protect her and save her. The film at first tries to play coy with who is this mystery, but then soon drops its act, and then it basically ends up becoming the finale of WandaVision, the series. I'll let you talk first about Doctor Strange 2, and then I will say my thoughts.
So when we saw Everything Everywhere All at Once, I made a prediction to you where I said that film is going to be better than Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. And I was hoping I might be a little bit wrong because it's Marvel. And I heard all these rumors of cameos and, you know, transporting into like the animation universe of Marvel and all this other stuff that was all over the internet. And I don't feel like it lived up to the title. Now, it's not a bad film. Sam Raimi really, I think, brought the horror element to it that we expected. You see his trademarks. He's got Bruce Campbell doing a cameo. It's pretty violent in many scenes and, you know, even more violent than most Marvel movies. And, you know, and I love Elizabeth Olsen as Scarlet Witch in this one because the trailers made you think she was going to be an ally up until a point. No, she's the villain throughout this entire movie. And, you know, you understand her intentions where she's not a flat out villain, but her actions are making her flip to that dark side, which is always what the Scarlet Witch character was in the comic book. Now, all that being said, you know, and again, I love Benedict Cumberbatch. I like the cameos that we got, you know, John Krasinski playing Mr. Fantastic, and he's not done. That was just a variant. And Patrick Stewart coming back to Professor X in an accurate wheelchair, just like in the X-Men cartoon. And it was great hearing the theme song when that popped up, Danny Elfman's score being thrown in there. So there's a lot to like, but where was the Multiverse of Madness? Because they only went to like maybe 2 or 3 different spots in this movie. And you had that bit that you saw in the trailer when he's flipping with America Chavez through the different dimensions. That was as close as we got, where like they turned into paint at one point, they turn into cartoons. You see them, I think, in like 2099. You know, I wanted to see more of that. I wanted to see this go crazier than it did. And instead, it just seemed to fall into this line of, it's a mainstream Disney-produced Marvel movie. And I felt disappointed by that because Everything Everywhere All at Once, that didn't have a multiverse title in there, but you could see how ridiculously nuts that movie was. And I loved every minute of it because of that. This was half of that. This was like, you only gave me 25% of the Multiverse of Madness. You didn't go to full 100 here. And that really was the one thing that let me down about it. But I still liked it. I was still enjoying it. But where was the Multiverse of Madness? And I feel like Kevin Feige was just not behind the wheel on this one.
Okay. I agree with you about where was the Multiverse of Madness. I think you liked it more than I did. It's a fine movie, you know, I was entertained, but okay, you have to understand, when Doctor Strange, the first film came out, I wasn't that interested in seeing it because, you know, he was never one of my favorite characters. But when I went to see it, I was shocked at how much I enjoyed the first film. And because it was strange, different, and had interesting uses of the special effects and the 3D, you know, that it had in it. Even if the villain wasn't the most memorable. You know, again, this is his first movie, so he can't be fighting like, oh, my arch enemy, my biggest enemy. But here, the problem is, and it's not Sam Raimi's fault, But the first one was so dark and kind of weird that this one feels so studio produced.
Yeah.
So you notice the difference, and it just feels like it's on autopilot almost. I know it has more horror elements, but even those are really more like, again, like PG-13 horror elements.
Which is what they were trying to go for. They wanted it to feel like you were back in the 80s and it's Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom or Red Dawn, where it falls between the line of PG-13 and R.
But it was never scary. That was the problem. It was like,
no, it wasn't.
They tried for some jump scares, but they never quite worked. You also have to keep in mind, I saw this a little late, so some of the spoilers it was ruined for me. But it even undercuts itself in the post-credit sequence.
Yes.
Because you give us this big dramatic ending, then you get us the first post-credit sequence, which, oh, great, there's a cameo by somebody we've never seen before. But then it shows, okay, even though that big thing that happened in the end, he seems okay with it. So you cut that short. Then you have the second one, which is really just an in-joke for Sam Raimi, Bruce Campbell, and people who sit to the end of the credits. It really doesn't need to be there.
Yeah, and the audience I saw it with, I know like my close friend really wanted to see Deadpool show up, and we didn't get that. Now, I didn't want, like, it would be a mistake if the whole film was driven by cameos and it takes away from the story. I can understand that being a distraction, but come on. You just let Scarlet Witch collapse herself when she realizes the mistake that she's making. Why not at least have a hint that she's going to get recruited by the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, and she meets her real father from another universe being Magneto? That could have been something that people would have been talking about. But no, that we get the standard, like, Charlize Theron playing in the comics, she ends up becoming the wife of Doctor Strange, Clea, but nobody cares.
Exactly.
This was supposed to be something much bigger, and this is coming out exactly 10 years after the Avengers. So you think this was going to be like a major bombshell, and we didn't really get that. Spider-Man, which we'll talk about later, really opened up the multiverse and gave people what they wanted. And I don't think we got maybe, like I said, 25% of what we wanted. We didn't get the full 100.
Well, that's because this feels more like a placeholder movie. Like, again, to give closure to the WandaVision series and set up other things in the future for it. I mean, even the ending with America Chavez at the temple felt like she was in Aquafina's storyline in Shang-Chi.
But, this is another problem with the MCU right now as a whole. Now, I understand most of this is going to probably lead to Secret Wars, which won't happen for another couple of years. If you know the comic book, that's when, you see the X-Men, you see Spider-Man, you see all these guys go into another dimension, and they're supposed to fight some major intergalactic battle. But right now, each of these films in Phase 4, plus the Disney Plus shows, they seem so disconnected. You don't know where they're supposed to lead. Phase 1 was all about building to the Avengers. Phase 2 was essentially building the Age of Ultron and the eventual split of the Avengers. And then Phase 3 was going into Infinity War and Endgame. Where is this supposed to go? Because it just seems like we're just setting off into different teams. So the villains are all being recruited by Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and looks like Shang-Chi is going to be part of maybe like a new Avenger group. But it seems like we don't really know, like there's not one track. It's like one too many tracks and not one clear path of where's this all going to diverge.
I agree with you. I'm just like, it just killed any momentum. I mean, obviously I'm going to see more Marvel movies.
Yeah.
But it just like the rest of the day put me in a bad mood, It was just like, this was just such a letdown compared to part 1. So
like Jamie Lee Curtis is out there, going on Twitter, going on Instagram, and really pushing everything everywhere all at once and saying this is the real Multiverse of Madness. And I'm not going to argue with Jamie Lee Curtis. I'm with her on that.
I would tell everybody, if you really want to see interdimensional multiverse movie, go see Everything Everywhere All at Once.